The Odyssey, the long road home. The city of Troy was gone. Its mighty walls had fallen, its temples burned, its warriors were scattered across the battlefield. For the Greek kings, the war was finally over. One by one, they gathered their ships and prepared for the journey home. Many believed the hardest part was behind them. They were wrong, because while the Trojan War had ended, the anger of the gods had only begun, and no one would suffer more than the clever king of Ithaca, Odysseus, a king who challenged the gods. Odysseus was unlike Achilles. He was not the strongest warrior, he was not the fastest. He did not rely on overwhelming force. His greatest weapon was his mind. It was Odysseus who imagined the wooden horse. It was Odysseus whose strategy finally defeated Troy after 10 exhausting years. But intelligence can become dangerous, especially when it gives birth to pride. The gods admired wisdom. They did not tolerate arrogance, and one careless decision would cost Odysseus nearly everything. The island of the Lotus Eaters. With 12 ships under his command, Odysseus set sail across the wine-dark sea. The winds carried his fleet toward unknown islands. At first, the journey seemed peaceful. Blue skies stretched overhead. Gentle waves rocked the ships. The men laughed, believing they would soon see their families again. Then a violent storm swept across the sea. Days later, the battered fleet reached a strange island. Its people welcomed the exhausted sailors with smiles. They offered them fruit unlike anything they had ever seen. The lotus, sweet, fragrant, almost irresistible. Several sailors eagerly accepted. Within moments, everything changed. The men forgot their homes, forgot the war, forgot their families. They no longer wished to sail. They wanted only to remain on the island forever. Odysseus immediately understood the danger. This was not simple food. It was a prison disguised as paradise. He dragged his men back to the ships by force. Some cried, some begged to stay. Ignoring their pleas, Odysseus ordered every sail raised. As the island disappeared beyond the horizon, his men slowly regained their memories. The first danger had passed, but far worse awaited them. The land of the Cyclopes. Soon, the fleet reached another mysterious island. Unlike the last, this place appeared deserted. Huge caves dotted the rocky coastline. Massive sheep grazed peacefully across green fields. Some sailors wished to steal supplies and leave. Odysseus chose differently. We will meet whoever lives here. It was a decision he would regret forever. Inside the largest cave, the men found enormous shelves filled with cheese. Milk overflowed from giant bowls. Everything suggested that whoever owned this place was unimaginably large. Night fell. The cave suddenly darkened. A gigantic figure stepped inside. He was taller than any tree. His shoulders nearly touched the ceiling. In the center of his face, one enormous eye stared down at the intruders. This was Polyphemus, a Cyclops, and the son of Poseidon. Trapped, Polyphemus sealed the cave entrance with a boulder so massive that 20 men could not have moved it. He looked at the strangers, then asked one simple question. "Who are you?" Odysseus explained that they were travelers seeking hospitality. The Cyclops laughed. Hospitality meant nothing to him. Without warning, he seized 2 sailors. He smashed them against the stone floor. Then he ate them. The remaining Greeks froze in horror. The cave echoed with the sounds of the monster's feast. Morning came. Polyphemus lifted the enormous stone. He released his sheep to graze, then sealed the entrance once again. The prisoners were trapped. Every hour meant another death. Odysseus searched desperately for a solution. Strength could not defeat the giant. Only intelligence remained. The name Nobody. That evening, Odysseus approached Polyphemus carrying a skin of powerful wine taken from Troy. The Cyclops drank eagerly, then demanded another. Soon, His speech slowed. His eyelid drooped. Before sleep overtook him, he asked, "What is your name, little man?" Odysseus smiled. "My name is Nobody." Satisfied, Polyphemus collapsed into a drunken sleep. Odysseus quickly gathered his strongest companions. Together they sharpened a massive wooden stake in the fire. When its tip glowed red, they drove it directly into the Cyclops' single eye. The monster awoke screaming. His roar shook the island. Other Cyclopes rushed outside the cave. "What happened?" "Who is hurting you?" Polyphemus cried out. "Nobody is attacking me." The others fell silent. "If nobody is hurting you, then your suffering must come from the gods." One by one, they walked away. Odysseus's trick had worked. The escape. The cave remained sealed. Polyphemus now sat blindly at the entrance, feeling every sheep that passed beneath his hands. No man could escape unnoticed. Again, Odysseus relied on cunning. He tied each sailor beneath the belly of a sheep. When morning arrived, the giant carefully felt only the animals' backs. One by one, the sheep walked outside, hidden beneath thick wool. The Greeks escaped. At last, Odysseus climbed aboard his ship. The sails caught the wind. Freedom lay only moments away. He should have remained silent. Instead, his pride overcame his wisdom. Standing at the stern of his ship, he shouted back across the waves, "Cyclops! It was not Nobody who defeated you. It was Odysseus, king of Ithaca." Polyphemus roared with rage. He tore an enormous boulder from the mountainside. The rock crashed into the sea only yards from the escaping ship. Then the blinded giant lifted his hands toward the heavens. "Father, hear me. If I truly am your son, do not let Odysseus reach home. And if he must return, let him arrive alone." After years of suffering, Poseidon heard every word. From that moment onward, the sea itself became Odysseus's enemy, the keeper of the wind's days. Later, battered by relentless storms, the fleet reached the floating island of Aeolus. The ruler of the winds welcomed Odysseus warmly. After hearing the story of Troy, Aeolus offered a remarkable gift. He trapped every dangerous wind inside a great leather bag. Only one gentle west wind remained free to guide the ships toward Ithaca for 9 days. The voyage was perfect. At last, the mountains of Ithaca appeared on the horizon. Odysseus, exhausted from steering the ship, finally fell asleep. The sailors stared at the mysterious bag. It must contain gold or treasure from Troy. Driven by curiosity and greed, they untied the cords. Instantly, the imprisoned winds exploded into the sky. Hurricanes roared across the sea. The fleet was hurled backward. Days of progress vanished in a single moment. When Odysseus awoke, his homeland had disappeared beyond the horizon once again. The journey home had begun from the very beginning, and Poseidon's curse had only just begun. The Odyssey, witches, sirens, and the road through the underworld. The sea had become Odysseus's prison. Every time his ships neared home, a storm drove them away. Every island promised safety, only to reveal another danger. His men had begun to lose hope. Some wondered if they would ever see Greece again. Others believed Poseidon would hunt them until the end of time. Odysseus refused to surrender. No matter how many times the sea pushed him back, he would continue sailing. But the next island waiting on the horizon held a danger unlike anything they had faced before. Not a monster, not an army, but a woman, one whose smile concealed deadly magic. The island of Circe, the island of Aiaia, looked peaceful. Green forests stretched toward the mountains. Crystal clear streams flowed through flowering meadows. Birds sang from the trees. Nothing suggested danger. Odysseus divided his crew. Half remained with the ships. The others followed his trusted companion Eurylochus inland to search for food. Soon they discovered an elegant palace hidden deep within the forest. Smoke drifted gently from its chimney. The doors stood open. Inside, a beautiful woman welcomed them warmly. Her name was Circe. She invited the weary sailors to feast. Golden cups overflowed with wine. Fresh bread covered the tables. After months at sea, the exhausted men accepted eagerly. Only Eurylochus hesitated. Something felt wrong. As the sailors drank, Circe quietly stirred a magical potion into their cups. Within moments, the spell took hold. Their bodies began to change. Hands became hooves, faces stretched into snouts, voices became terrified squeals. The sailors had become pigs. Only their human minds remained, trapped inside animal bodies. Eurylochus fled back to the ships, his face pale with fear. Hermes appears. When Odysseus heard what had happened, he drew his sword and headed towards Circe's palace alone. On the forest path, a mysterious young traveler appeared. It was Hermes, messenger of the gods. Knowing the danger ahead, Hermes handed Odysseus a small white flower with a black root. "This is moly," he explained, "a plant so magical that only the gods can safely touch it. Eat it before entering. No spell will control you." Odysseus thanked the god and continued. Breaking the spell, Circe welcomed Odysseus with the same warm smile. She offered him wine. He drank it. Then she raised her enchanted wand. "Become a beast." Nothing happened. Circe stepped backward in shock. No mortal had ever resisted her magic. Odysseus drew his sword for the first time. The powerful witch felt fear. She quickly surrendered. "I have misjudged you." She restored every sailor to human form. Strangely, an unlikely friendship grew between them. Circe became their host. Her palace became their home. Days passed, then weeks. Weeks became months. Nearly an entire year slipped away before Odysseus finally remembered his journey home. His crew reminded him gently, "Our families are still waiting. Our children are growing older. Our homes still lie across the sea." Odysseus knew they were right. Before they departed, Circe gave one final warning. "Your road home passes through the land of the dead. There, you must seek the prophet Tiresias." The journey into the underworld. No living man willingly entered the underworld. Yet Odysseus had no choice. Following Circe's instructions, his ships reached the dark edge of the world where sunlight barely touched the sea. There he performed ancient rituals. He poured wine, milk, honey, and finally, the blood of sacrificed animals from the darkness. Shadows began to emerge. Thousands of spirits gathered around the offering. The dead, kings, warriors, children, forgotten souls wandering forever. Among them appeared Tiresias, the blind prophet. Though dead, his wisdom remained untouched. He spoke calmly. "You will return home, but only if your men resist temptation. When you reach the island of the sun god, do not touch his sacred cattle. If they do, everything will be lost." Then another familiar figure approached. Achilles, the greatest warrior of Troy. Odysseus praised his eternal glory. Achilles shook his head sadly. "Do not envy the dead. I would rather live one day as a poor farmer than rule every soul in this place." The words stayed with Odysseus long after he left the underworld. The sirens back aboard his ship, Circe's next warning echoed in his mind. The sirens! Their voices were more dangerous than swords, more deadly than monsters. They sang with impossible beauty. Every sailor who heard their song steered directly toward them. Their ships crashed against hidden rocks. No one survived. Odysseus wanted to hear the mysterious music, but he refused to lose his crew. He ordered every sailor to melt beeswax and seal their ears. Then he gave another command: "Tie me tightly to the mast. No matter what I say, do not untie me." The crew obeyed. Soon, a haunting melody drifted across the waves. It was more beautiful than anything Odysseus had ever heard. The sirens promised knowledge, glory, peace, every secret the world had ever hidden. Their voices reached into his heart. He struggled violently. "Release me! I command you!" The sailors ignored him. The ropes held firm. Slowly, the song faded behind them. For the first time in history, a ship had passed the sirens and survived. Scylla and Charybdis ahead lay the narrowest part of the sea. On one side waited Charybdis, a monstrous whirlpool capable of swallowing entire ships. 3 times each day, the sea disappeared into its depths, then exploded upward again. On the opposite cliff lurked Scylla, a creature with 12 legs, 6 long necks, and 6 ravenous heads. Circe had warned Odysseus, "You cannot avoid both. If you steer away from Scylla, Charybdis will destroy your entire ship." Faced with an impossible choice, Odysseus guided the vessel closer to Scylla. As they passed beneath the cliffs, 6 terrible heads shot downward. Before anyone could react, 6 sailors disappeared screaming into the darkness. The ship escaped, but the cost was devastating. Odysseus later admitted it was the worst moment of his entire voyage. The cattle of Helios. Eventually, the battered crew reached a peaceful island. Green fields stretched beneath a golden sun. Across the meadows grazed magnificent white cattle. These animals belonged to Helios, the sun god. Odysseus remembered Tiresias's warning, "No one touches the cattle." His crew agreed. Then a violent storm trapped them on the island. 1 day became 2, 2 became 10. Their food slowly disappeared. Hunger became unbearable. While Odysseus slept, the starving sailors made a terrible decision. They slaughtered Helios's sacred cattle. The smell of roasting meat drifted across the island. When Odysseus awoke, he knew disaster had arrived. Helios demanded justice. Zeus answered. The moment the ships returned to sea, a bolt of lightning shattered the fleet. Waves swallowed every vessel, one by one. Odysseus watched every companion disappear beneath the ocean. For the first time since leaving Troy, he was completely alone, exhausted, broken, clinging to a single piece of driftwood. Odysseus drifted across the endless sea. Days passed, then weeks. At last, a distant island appeared through the mist. He believed salvation awaited him. He could not have known that this island would keep him prisoner for 7 long years. Its ruler was the immortal nymph Calypso, and his journey home was still far from over.